Here are two kids in 1944 in an occupied country, sick of war, sick of not having freedom, right? And they continue to discuss America, but with the United States. They're discussing whether or not it could be true that everyone has a chance in this country, that it doesn't matter where you come from, that you can be whoever you want to be. And they argue it. Sometimes one of them says, yeah, I think it's true, and sometimes the other says, it's not. And that was just a joy for me to remember for myself and for my readers that that's what we've always said we are. It's a place that everybody is free and everybody has a chance.
Hey everyone, I'm Bianca Schulze, founder of the Children's Book Review, and this is the Growing Readers Podcast. What does real courage look like when you're young and the world tells you you're small? In this episode, I sit down with Sara Pennypacker to talk about her stunning new middle grade novel, The Lion's Run, a story set in Nazi-occupied France that follows Lucas, an orphan boy whose empathy becomes his greatest strength. We dig into a little-known chapter of World War II history, explore why small acts of resistance matter more than ever, and talk about what it truly means to be brave. Sara also shares the creative quirks that fuel her writing, think trampolines and swimming, the fourth-grade teacher who saw an author in her before she did, and a sneak peek at her upcoming book, Big Cheese. This is a conversation about the power kids hold, even when the world doesn't recognize it yet. Sara Pennypacker is the author of several acclaimed novels for middle grade readers, including The Lion's Run, the #1 New York Times bestselling Pax, which was a National Book Award longlist title, and Pax Journey Home, the Clementine series, which was a Boston Globe Horn Book Award honor, and its spin-off series, Waylon, and Summer of the Gypsy Moths, Here in the Real World, and Lever at Last. She divides her time between Cape Cod and Southern California. Before I share our conversation, here is the synopsis for The Lion's Run. An instant New York Times bestseller and indie bestseller. The acclaimed New York Times bestselling author of Pax delivers an historical novel about an orphan during World War II who discovers unexpected courage within himself when he becomes involved with the resistance. Petit Eclair. That's what the other boys at the orphanage call Lucas Dubois. Lucas is tired of his cowardly reputation, just as he's tired of the war and the Nazi occupation of his French village. He longs to show how brave he can be. He gets the chance when he saves a litter of kittens from cruel boys and brings them to an abandoned stable to care for them. There he comes upon a stranger who is none too happy to see him, Alice, the daughter of a horse trainer who is hiding her filly from German soldiers. Soon, Lucas begins to realize they are not the only ones in the village with secrets. The housekeeper at the German maternity home and a priest at the orphanage pass coded messages. A young mother at the home makes dangerous plans to keep her baby from forced adoption, and a neighbor in town may be harboring a Jewish family. Emboldened by the unlikely heroes all around him, Lucas is forced to decide how much he is willing to risk to make the most courageous rescue of all. Perfect for fans of Alan Gratz and Kimberly Brubaker Bradley, this accessible novel, told in short chapters, illuminates a little-known aspect of World War II history. Hi, Sara Pennypacker. Welcome to the Growing Readers Podcast.
Hi, and thank you so much for having me.
An absolute pleasure. Just a little sort of intro to how I first came across your books. Clementine, the first Clementine came out in 2006, which was the same year my first child was born. And I became a children's bookseller in 2008. And one of my favorite series to hand sell to young readers was the Clementine series. So I've been with you for a long time.
That's a long time now. I'm now meeting, girls who are, they're late 20s who told me that they were reading it then and that sometimes they pick it up just to feel comforted, which is beautiful.
Yeah, amazing. Well, I thought we could just start with a couple of warm-up, rapid-fire questions. So first, answers that come to your mind here.
Sure.
And they're just a little bit of fun. So pajamas or bathing suit? Which is your real riding uniform?
Oh, very interestingly, of course, pajamas for most of the time, but I swim every day, or I don't call it swimming. I get into water every day. Sometimes I just stand there and dance and move around, but every single day. So yes, bathing suit as well.
I love it. Okay.
Yeah.
Pie or cookies?
Cookies right now. Pie, I don't have time for the deal of pie, but cookies, lots of them.
What kind of cookies?
I have this little thing now. These are so healthy. It's a little promo for them. Alyssa's Vegan Bites. There's nothing wrong with them. I eat them constantly.
I love it. Okay. Kittens or horses?
Oh, kittens.
Kittens. One word to describe Lucas from The Lion's Run.
Oh my gosh. I guess I'm going to say, I'm going to say empathetic.
Empathetic.
There you go. Yeah.
And then a book from childhood that you'd put in every kid's hands today.
I think The Borrowers still.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love The Borrowers too.
Yeah.
All right, longer answers now. So this is my signature question. To be a writer, it's often said that you need to be a reader first. So was there a pivotal moment when you considered yourself a reader?
Probably I was too young to consider myself a reader. I was into it so early and so fast that I don't remember a time when I wasn't. I started reading very early. In fact, we moved and I had to skip a grade because they weren't letting kindergartners in because I could read, right? And I just had read forever. But here's when I knew that I might have had a problem. Not a problem. They used to have this thing in my school, and I think in all schools back then, called the SRA box, which was something reading something box. And it would just have these really laminated, beautiful little cards, and they had things you could read, and you could plow through the colors. And I remember Aqua. I was so excited to get to Aqua. And I would do anything to get there. And the way that you had to get there was get all your questions right and on a test, or just whatever was going on, you had to super achieve. And that's what I did. So I became a super classroom achiever as a third grader. I just wanted to impress my teacher, only so I could be allowed to leave the class and sit with that box. I love that box.
I love that. So you really, truly were just a reader from the get-go.
Loved it. Yeah.
So I think it's always really fun to learn about the day-to-day of how our favorite authors work. So I know that you kind of have some unconventional writing habits that maybe involve your swimming. And I heard possibly a trampoline.
How do you know that?
Well, I mean, secret intel comes my way. I can't give up my sources, but tell us about the quirks of your creative process.
I have a couple of things. I'm telling you, you're absolutely right. I have to swim. I started swimming because I have a bad back. It was the very best thing for me. But what I quickly learned was In order to work well on my books, I try to exclude the real world. And I've learned that when you're swimming, you don't see the real world. You see only the sky or one bit of ceiling if you're swimming indoors. You don't feel the real world because you're underwater. I swim on my back so I don't hear the real world. So it is so easy for me to slip into whatever scene it is I'm working on. So I never get in the water without a scene ready to go in my head as I swim, right? Or do my whatever exercises. And the other thing is a trampoline for a couple of reasons. The trampoline improves my mood a lot. First of all, that's important to be feeling hopeful and bouncy and just good. But it also brings oxygen to my brain. That's the science of it. So once or twice a day, I get out of my chair and I go over to my little trampoline. I'm looking at it right now. It's a small one. And I bounce. And I just feel energized by that. And then the last thing I'll tell you, though, here's a little, I think it's a big tip, actually. When I am falling asleep now, I always put some sort of it might be a problem or it might be what I'm going to work on the next day, the scene I'm going to work on. I roll it around in my head just at that point between sleep and awareness. And that I'm really sure, and science backs me up, that that's allowing my subconscious to do some work. Just tucking it right in there for the guys in the back of the head to take care of while I sleep. And it really seems to help.
I love that. It's so fun talking to everybody about sort of their little creative processes and quirks. And anyway, I was thinking to myself, the last time I was having a conversation that I felt compelled to do something different was Candace Fleming. I mean, this is simple, but when she's drafting, she uses loose leaf paper in a binder because she starts everything by handwriting. And I like to handwrite first. But I was always crossing things out, and then I didn't have space to like rewrite, and so then I'd find myself rewriting a whole page, which wasn't like, I actually kind of enjoyed it, but the loose leaf paper was brilliant. But now I'm like, I need a mini trampoline in my office.
Wait till you try it. I think you'll be a fan. It's just all positive. I love my little trampoline.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Well, I also know from your bio that you were a painter before you became a writer. And so after all these years, and is the number correct to say 27 books published?
It is correct. And I'm working on my 28th. Yes.
Wow. So how do you think having kind of a visual artist's eye help shape the way that you build a scene or a character on the page? Or do you not think about that at all?
I do not think about that at all because I don't really see it as a positive. What I see is I was just misdirected. I knew I wanted to make things and things that told stories or made you feel something. And I didn't believe I could be a writer early on. And so this seemed it for me. When I finally understood that, I'm meant to be a writer and I'm going to go do this thing, it was like, it felt as if I was going from a second language to my first language, as though painting had been a second language. And this is what I'm really meant to do. So I kind of think that I was misdirected. However, almost everything I learned as a painter travels into my life. It was like I walked up one side of a ladder and then I said, oh, no, I'll go on the other side. And I'm already pretty far up. There are things about structure that are the same in any art. There are things called passages in any art. You have a dance passage, a music passage, an art passage. So there are some things that just build no matter what art you're doing, I guess.
Yeah. What do you think made you realize that writing was your first, like that didn't come out right, but you know what I'm trying to say? What was it that made you realize that writing was what you were supposed to be doing? How did you know?
I knew because once I had my 2 kids and we spent so much time reading together, I just wasn't going to give that up. When they started reading on their own, I still didn't give it up. But early on, I was so blown away by how beautiful books had become since I was a reader of them, how intelligent they were, how moving they were. To see my own children moved by books is really what directed me there. But I'll tell you also that here's when I should have known, or it would have been great if I knew, is that when I was in 4th grade, my 4th grade teacher, I was very shy, couldn't look at adults because I was that shy. One day I was standing at her desk to pick up my story that I'd written and she had commented on, and I won't look at her, of course, but I have my hand out. And I feel my story in my hand and I'm trying to take it. I'm tugging and she won't give it up and I'm tugging. Finally, I turned to look at her, which is what she wanted. And she said, I want you to remember this. You are going to be an author. Can you believe that? She said that to me in 4th grade. And I just thought, that's ridiculous. I'm not famous or I'm not special. Right? So it's something I make sure kids know, is that authors are special because we get to do this wonderful work and then connect with the world this way. Well, we're not special before it. We're just often shy. We're kind of introverted often, not always. And we definitely don't feel special before we do it.
Yeah, I got goosebumps with you telling me that story. I love knowing that. And what a great teacher to empower you in that, even though maybe it took some time for you to believe it. But those words that grown-ups can say to children and the fact that they stay with them, I mean, it's so magical.
Yeah. One of the great sadnesses of my life is that once I was a writer, and now I'm, in my 40s, I tried to contact her to tell her that, and she had just died. Oh. And that's just, that's a sadness for me that I couldn't say, you were great for believing in me and for telling a kid that.
Yeah. I wonder if she knew that you had become an author, or even remembered that moment, that would be special to know. But that is a sadness.
Yeah.
Well, there's so many little components to a book. And I don't know why I didn't know this before, but I recently learned that a short quotation or phrase or a poem placed at the beginning of a book or of a chapter that hints at the themes to come is called an epigraph.
Yes.
So let's talk about the epigraph at the beginning of your beautiful new book, The Lion's Run. And that epigraph is an African proverb. When elephants fight, it is the grass that suffers. So what does it mean to you? And how does that guide the story that you wanted to tell?
It's perfect, isn't it? It's almost too much of a spoiler for the theme. You don't have to go far. But I ran into it a few years before the book. And I just knew this is something I've been thinking about, moved by, and probably talking about in my books for many years. I think since PAX, I would say that. It means that, oh man, anyone who's got the power, and when they decide to clash, they're just not thinking about who is in the way, who doesn't have the power. And that's very often children and animals, just way too often. And the earth. I mean, the African proverb is actually saying the earth will suffer, but it means that those smaller suffer. And I think that's right down to, do adults really consider when they're fighting, when they're arguing in front of a child? This is very upsetting. It's all the way from that up to war. What happens when large powers are warring? You cannot calculate the damage done to children, animals, people who have no power, no say in this war. It's incalculable.
Yeah. And what a perfect proverb to just kind of set all of that up, that whole conversation. It's all so true.
Yeah.
Most World War II fiction for young readers tends to center on really familiar events like concentration camps, the German bombing against Britain known as the Blitz, and of course, Anne Frank. But and you're probably going to have to correct my pronunciation here, but you chose to illuminate the Lebensborn maternity homes. Is it Lebensborn or Lebensborn?
I actually call it Lebensborn.
Lebensborn.
I believe the German for life is Leben. It means wellspring of life.
So you chose to illuminate the Lebensborn maternity homes. And for listeners who haven't encountered this part of history, and I was one of them, I did not know about this. Can you walk us through what these homes were and why you felt it was important to bring them to light for kids?
Yes. The Lebensborn program, just in a flash, was this. Back in the 30s, Hitler had great grand goals of what he was going to conquer, all of Europe and then beyond. He did the numbers out for 50 years, how many soldiers he would need to do the conquering and to continue holding these lands, and how many citizens he was going to need to populate. Back in that day, the Nazi eugenics theory was, he still believed in that, as widely debunked as it was. Even back then, it was clear to see. But now we see how horrific it was, what awful things happened, because some people believed that blonde hair and blue eyes were associated with superior interior characteristics, which is just ridiculous, and responsible for so much suffering and pain and horror in the world. Okay. He believed in that. And therefore, the first step of the stage of the Lebensborn program was this. He changed the mores of the country of Germany so quickly so that it became the highest thing a woman or a girl as young as 15 could do would be to give a child to the Fuhrer. That was the theme, give a child to the Fuhrer. Kids as young as 15 were encouraged to get pregnant by their youth leaders in the Nazi youth programs. So that didn't work. He didn't get enough people. So he hired Himmler, who was a chicken breeder, to get this going more. And what he did was he went into the occupied countries where he felt the girls and women were blonde and blue-eyed enough. And he encouraged the soldiers to get the girls pregnant. Once they were pregnant, they had basically no choice. Their family is angry with them. Their town is furious and stoning them for being a horizontal collaborator. And there's no food. There's no medical supply. So they went into these homes, which were almost always stolen Jewish spas or mansions. So they went in, they were taken care of very well. But then the Nazis took the babies and brought them out of the country, changed all the records, obscured everything, and had them be raised by, I'm air quoting here, good German families. So those kids never knew what happened. They never knew why their mothers didn't really like them all that much. And they never knew who their mom was or that their mom loved them. The moms were never able to find these babies. That just horrified me. And we're getting a little too close to that in our own country, to thinking about we need to increase a certain part of the population. That I thought, no, we can't just let this fly under the radar. We need to at least look at it. The third phase of the Lebensborn everybody does know about, which was they just went into places like Poland and stole hundreds of thousands of children. They just outright stole blonde, blue-eyed children. That's why I did it. But I want to be really clear. This is not a book about that. That happens to have happened all over the place. And in my book, it is merely a trigger for someone who's really sensitive to what it might feel like to not have a mom. He's an orphan, or to know who your mother is, or to think, is my mother looking for me? That person is my main character, and he is triggered to action by what he sees. It's not a book about the Lebensborns.
Yeah, so let's talk about Lucas. So Lucas has a name that the other boys of the orphanage call him, which is Petite Eclair, and it's not a compliment. And he feels he's seen as a coward, but there's a wonderful distinction in your book between, I think, what a character wants and what they truly need. And I think Lucas wants to prove that he's brave. But I want to know from you, what is it that he actually needs? And why do you think he really needs to learn this throughout the story?
He definitely does want to be seen as brave because it hurts. He's ridiculed. And he's never been a coward, but to the other boys, he looks like one because he's empathetic enough to not want to play war games. He has been with other friends when a bomb hit and he's seen the damage that can happen. It's not funny to him, that's all. He's also very sensitive to others, which is not cowardice. In fact, I believe that's the true root of all courage is empathy. You have to care enough about someone other than yourself to go into some kind of action. And I happen to think kids are really good at that, at somehow radical empathy. They're able to empathize beyond their own species, beyond even animals that are wild they can empathize with. So he's never really been a coward, but he's seen as one. What does he need? I think he just needs to be okay with himself. He needs to feel good about himself, which doesn't mean acting heroically. It means understanding that his own empathy is courage.
Alan Gratz, who's a really well-known New York Times bestselling author of refugee. Historical fiction is his bag. And he said Lucas is proof that a mere kitten can be the bravest of lions. I love that. And too. I also love that the story literally begins with Lucas saving kittens, an act that some of the other boys see as soft. So was that always your opening? And how did you decide that tenderness, not toughness, would be Lucas's superpower?
Well, first I want to tell you this. I've been out on the road for a week now talking to kids about this book. And I just want to say, Alan, enough. So always there's a question in the audience, do you know Alan Gratz? So he is very beloved in the schools I've been visiting. The kitten thing was pretty easy. I knew I wanted a small example, but that every kid reading it is going to say, me too. I would not be okay knowing that kittens are going to be drowned. Okay, it does that. Yes, I knew that the name of the book was going to involve lions. I knew that it was great to start with kittens if you're going to end up with lions. What was the second part of the question?
So, did you decide that tenderness, not toughness, would be his superpower, or did that just kind of evolve?
I have been thinking for several years now about that. The truth of what courage looks like to kids. I've been thinking about it since I was on the road with Pax and Pax Journey Home, because kids ask me, what does courage look like when you don't have agency, is basically what they're asking. You know, kids can't vote. They don't have a paycheck they could throw at a project. They can't drive to a protest. They're just not all Greta Thunberg, right? So I've talked a lot with kids about what it looks like. And it always ends up to me looking like empathy. So I knew that was going to be what happened and through the book. And if you read it watching for those things, there are 4 times when Lucas is triggered by something that is weaker than he is, say, or more vulnerable than he is, being abused or being threatened, right? And each time he reacts, and by reacting, he just starts to understand, well, it was a small thing I did, but I did it, right? It's the theory of termites in the book, is how, no termite is ever going to get its own superpower show, right? But working together, termites can take down a cathedral, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I always knew that, and I feel really good about saying that to kids, because I know that what they see in media for courage is bulging muscles, weapons, chaos, explosion, and it's loud. And those things have nothing to do with real courage. Those are heroics for the theater.
That was exactly where I was going to go next. Like, you just led so perfectly, because it is the main media is just big, loud, and this is what a hero is.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, you think about the French resistance and those people, all of these, so many small acts that they did and they made together. Yes. I mean, that is so heroic what they did, and knowing, what could happen to them for one small choice, like carrying a note in their pocket. And I love that this book is filled with so many unlikely heroes. There's a housekeeper passing coded messages. And you tell me if any of this feels like a spoiler, and I will just chop it right out. But there's a priest in the resistance. There's a teen mother making desperate plans. There's a neighbor harboring a Jewish family. Yeah. So I think I know.
And Alice.
What's that?
Alice, she's just saying nope to the Nazis who want to take her horse. And she's just plain saying, no, I'll keep my horse, thank you.
Yeah.
Whatever that takes.
So what were you trying to show young readers about what everyday courage looks like, and especially during wartime? And we sort of already touched on this, but just on a deeper level, like what did you want them to know about everyday courage and what it looks like?
Just that it is many small acts. It is very hard to overcome any real obstacle with one move, but that many small moves, and that all around there are termites working all around. No matter what you are resisting, you are not alone, whether you know it or not. No matter what the authoritarian issue is, there are people working behind the scenes, and you're not alone. Remember, Mr. Rogers, look for the helpers. I think look for the resistors.
Yeah. So cool. So
one more thing. I want to say also that it feels good. This is not a book that feels bad. These kids, both Alice and Lucas, are feeling pretty good as the book goes along, because they are taking steps.
Yeah, I agree. And I have to talk about the cherry strudel. And so without giving too much away for listeners who haven't read the book yet, there's a moment involving cherry strudel that I think is actually such an extraordinary piece of storytelling. And it's kind of a device that creates an ultimate pivotal moment. I'm going to stop there with that. It's one of the things that I admire most about your writing in this book and all of your books is how small details that seem almost throwaway early on, like Lucas hearing about how to mix baby formula, but they turn out to be really essential later on. And so one thing leads to another, and like it's dominoes that you've set up for the reader without them even realizing it. So how much of that intricate chain did you plan from the start, and how much of that revealed itself along the way?
I think I would say half and half, and I need to credit Joseph Campbell for that detail, because it was through studying his work on story that I learned that a very satisfying thing that you could do in a story is this. use the antagonist's powers against them. That cherry strudel is a perfect example of that. The antagonist in this book, being the Nazi control, right, has already, and it's a she who's made that strudel, a Nazi she who's made the strudel, and she's made it be clear that she's in power over Lucas because she looks down on him as being an orphan, as being poor. That is a power she holds against him, but he turns it against her. That's what Joseph Campbell said, do that. And I tried to do that, and you caught it. That's exactly what I did. He used it against her.
Yeah.
And I won't say any more either.
No, I just you're so clever. And I mean, I read a lot of books and sometimes there's parts that, could have been chopped out. And there's nothing in your book that I would have ever chopped out. It all just led to the next thing. And you're so clever.
Well, I'll pass that along to my editor, Don Bray, because my books, when I first write them, first draft is generally twice as much stuff as is in the book. I need to do it for myself. It's not that I think it will all be there at the end, but it's just my process is to overwrite.
Yeah.
And she's very, very good about the parts that I don't want to give up, but should give up.
Yeah. Well, I just had author Megan McDonald of Judy Moody fame on the show. And she said she overwrites her original drafts to begin with and then whittles them down to the most distilled version. And is that true for you too? And I think with a subject this rich, with the Lebensborn, the resistance, the fate of stolen children, families being torn apart, how did you decide what to keep and what to pare away to keep the story tight for middle grade readers? And, it sounds like obviously there's a great partnership with your editor, but how did you decide what to keep in and how long did it take you?
It's ongoing, always. I'm always thinking about that. I heard a great piece of advice from a historical author, and I don't remember who, I'm sorry, but she said, remember that your job is not to teach history. Your job is to tell a story. And I caught myself several times basically saying to the readers, wait till you hear this great thing I learned and I could show it in this scene. But it wasn't my job. So I'm pretty good at cutting it down, and then Donna does the end. The really toughest.
Yeah, I love that. And then providing that opportunity to trust the reader and these kids that they're smart and they can read behind the lines and take the messages with them. But so your book is it's told in what I think are really just short and energy driven chapters. So did you have thought about a conscious choice about the structure that you wanted the book to be, or about pacing, or are you are you a plotter? Does the story just come to you? What is it about your pacing? Because it's just, I really just love your writing so much. So, what kind of conscious choices are you making as you write for middle grade audience? I love writing scenes, and I'm imagining scenes. I love that. And then I have to kind of bind them together, because too much just hopping from scene to scene is a little hard to follow. So I prefer writing scenes. I am a very, very strict structurist, but I'm not strict about what structure to use, but once I've decided, I really pay attention to that. And that helps me with pacing. We don't go too long with things being good, but we also don't, crash through problem after problem. I want us to stop and say, oh, here's life. We're making a friend here. We're enjoying some scones when we haven't had anything good to eat. So I'm pretty aware of structure. I guess I would say that. Yeah. So I'm wondering if you have a highlight, whether you wanted to read a little piece to us or you want to just talk more specifically about like a favorite character. Like what's something that's the most meaningful in the book to you that you want to share?
I would like to tell you two things. Okay. One is, and wherever I go and talk about the book, I do this. I pull out, I am wearing my dad's dog tags. My dad was not far from where this book happened when it happened. He was in a German prisoner of war camp. He had been a pilot. He was a teenager. He ran a mission. He bombed some oil fields that the Germans were counting on, and they captured him on the way back. They shot down his plane. So he spent the rest of the war in a German prisoner of war camp. I bring these out for two reasons. One is to remind kids that historical fiction was real to real people. It was real. You do have to remember that, but also that it's past. It's over. The Nazis do not occupy France. And basically everything that happened in a world during a historical fiction, it's always going to be a challenging time. We don't write historical fiction about, oh, these are the good old days, right? They were challenging. So to remind kids that good forces are always going to win over the evil. It just may take longer than you want. So that was important to me. I made a mention of him in the book early on. Some women are gossiping about the American flag voice. So that was great. But the second thing I was so excited to do is this. While I was writing the book, I happened to be at a house concert of a British singer-songwriter, and he sang us a song and told us the story behind it. And the song was about silver florins and florins are coins. And he had been in a pub in England. He had seen these coins on the beams of the pub above him. And he said, what are those? And he learned the story that just during what we call World War I, the Great War, this town was emptied. All of its boys had to leave and go be in the war. They all left one day. The night before they went to the pub, they drank, they said goodbye, and they nailed up coins. Each young man nailed up a coin and said, we're coming back and we're going to buy each other beers. And in a couple of years, we'll be back for these. And of course, only half of them came back. So half those coins are up there. And what I love is that art is a river, all forms of creation. We take stuff out of the river, we put stuff into the river. I put that story in my book. And my greatest hope about that is I hope some child reader reading that beautiful story about how to movingly understand what happened to a town when half those coins are there still, that someone else retells that story after reading my book. Isn't that great about art? Isn't that great?
Yeah, it really is. And like, I'm going to say, so I think that is the importance of story. And then I personally feel so frustrated that we have these stories. We have these lessons that should have been learned.
Yes.
And yet history, unfortunately, repeats itself in this new format, right? Where and it's so frustrating to me. I'm like, why haven't we learned yet? I mean, I want to just pull up a quote from the book that I'm going to read to you. Let me just find it here real quick.
I think I know what it is.
Now, do you say Madame Garnier, Mademoiselle Garnier?
She was married, so she's Madame.
Okay.
Madame Garnier, yeah.
Madame Garnier surprised him then. You've got a strong sense of justice, little termite. Don't lose it as you grow up. Is it possible I could lose it? Maybe I should hope that happens. Then I wouldn't get so angry all the time. She stopped sanding. You should be angry. But you're frustrated because you can't do anything about the things that upset you. That's natural. you're young. You don't have much power yet. But when you're older, you could use that sense of justice to correct what's unfair. There are a lot of ways an adult can right what's wrong. Become a lawyer, perhaps. Defend the poor. And when I was reading that, that was that moment of what I'm talking about, of that was relevant then. And why is it still so relevant now?
I know.
And it's powerful. And this is why I think books like this is so important for kids to read. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. My pleasure. It was a hard book to write because every day I had to be immersed in that time period. And to get it right, I had to be really respectful. I watched just so many videos and listened to interviews and read interviews of people who had children at that time. And that was very hard to do. But at the same time, I felt really good about what I was doing. So that counted it.
Yeah. And let's kind of just jump right to the cover right now.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, how stunning is that illustration? It's so It's so cool. My middle school daughter, when she saw me reading it, she's like, I know that artist. He's the guy that does the square and the circle. And then I said, and it's written by Sara Pennypacker. And she's like, that's the author of Pax. And I just the cover is just so catching. So talk to me about the cover.
Yes. Well, you can see behind me, I have the actual cover art. Jon just gave it to me. Not only is he brilliant, but he's so kind and so generous. He's a treasure for us all. But I will tell you one thing. When I saw this cover, the first time I saw this cover, both my editor and my agent were in my house, which had never happened before. But they had come to visit when I moved into California. And they showed it to me, and I gasped audibly. I went, oh, like that, because it's so stunning, especially to see it as you would see it when you open the book, the whole thing. And I did this. The next day, I went back into my studio with one goal, which was to not really rewrite, but go through with a light revision a book that was pretty much finished. And I told myself, you have to make it as exciting as the cover, which meant just shortening some sentences, upping some tension. My book became better because of Jon's cover, which I just think it's wonderful that the two arts together can elevate the two artists,
I'm such a book nerd that my eyes are starting to water, because as I was reading, I feel like I know which section you went back and rewrote, obviously, because I actually paused and went and looked at the cover while I was reading it.
Did you?
Anyway, so I mean, that's great. I actually never really thought about how the cover art might be completed while you still have an opportunity to make edits. So that's very cool that you were able to do that.
Right. Well, what I saw was a little bit, it was not quite complete, but it was pretty close. And the energy was there, and the terror, but the joy too was there. So, and I just had just enough time to go through, and I don't know, it was more a vibe than any change. It was just a vibe, and I'm so glad.
Yeah. Well, in a moment in our lives when things we thought we'd laid to rest in history are raising their heads again, what do you most want a child to carry with them after they close this book?
Wonderful question. A couple of things. One is, for all my books, I always want kids to ask questions afterward. For instance, I really, really hope that every reader at the end of this book asks themselves, is it ever okay to break a law in order to correct a crime? That, I think, is at the heart of it. And I hope that I have not answered it, but that I know my characters have to think about it. And I hope I've stepped back enough to leave room for my readers to ask the question and answer it for themselves. That's my job, is to get readers to ask questions. So I hope that. But I do also hope in this time when sometimes it feels like we're losing control and that forces we don't want are seeming to be gaining strength. And that happens, it's timeless. It's happening around the planet always. There's always some kind of authoritarian control trying to take advantage, always. But I hope that there's this little sense that small things can be done and it feels good and they actually make a difference. As tiny as they seem, they make a difference.
Yeah, well, I think you've succeeded in that. And I do want to touch really quickly because I saw that you have something new on the horizon for 2028, which the title is Big Cheese. And I'm so intrigued by that title. Is there anything that you can give us like a little taste of?
Yeah. I want you to know, because it's process too. Once I get pretty far, well, I have to get maybe halfway into a book. I always start and I put it in a binder. I make it look like a book. It looks like a book, right? Because around halfway, I start looking at it and thinking, oh my God, I'm overwhelmed. I don't think I can do this. It's too hard. So this is a step that I take. I put it in a binder and I say, nope, this is a book. Now finish it, right? Big Cheese is a logical follow-up to The Lion's Run and to everything between Pax and The Lion's Run. All of those things are saying kids don't have enough power. They should have power. Here's how they can have power. Here's how they can feel good about themselves with whatever power they have, right? I'm getting sicker and sicker of kids having no power. Kids, to me, they're the ones most at risk. This is their world. Whatever's going on, this is their world, right? And they're going to inherit it. And they're going to have to live with our decisions now. I really think that they should have a little more say in that. So Big Cheese, which means like, some powerful person, right? In this book, for the first time I've ever written this, a child has all the power. This girl has all the power, and she only has it, though, because adults have made mistakes. They've given up the power because they're kind of being foolish, right? So what does she do with it? She has a friend who has recognized her position first, and he's worried. He's like, I don't know. I think you're breaking like a law of the universe. Kids never have power. And then he says this thing, which I love. He says, think about it. If kids have all the power, there wouldn't be any wars except in video games. We'd enjoy that. People would be nice to each other and fair. Things would be fair, he says. And we wouldn't wreck the planet because, duh. I just loved writing that. So it's this kid thinking, wow, I do have some power here. What am I going to do with it? And it's fun. It's also just, I think, one of the funniest books I've written. I love to write funny, but it helps me balance after a book that's more serious. I like to write something much
I'm
more
excited.
Fun.
Kids are going to love that. And I
think,
if I remember correctly, did you win the Schneider Humor Award for Clementine at some point?
No, that's not the name of it. What is the name of it? Oh, I've forgotten the name. Yeah. It's the big humor award, yes. And I also won some state humor awards too.
Yeah, I'm blanking on the award too, but I have this memory. But
Sid Fleischman Award.
There you go, Sid Fleischman Humor Award, and so there you go, evidence that you are truly funny.
Although my kids deny that, but when I won that award, and several times after, I said, well, you have to admit I'm funny. And even to this day, they're 40 now. And they say, Mom, you're not funny. We were funny and you remembered us.
Oh
So,
my gosh. They're forever your kids, no matter how old they get.
they're going to tell me that, no, you're not that funny. And in truth, the book may be funny, but I am remembering some pretty funny kids.
Yeah. Well, Sara, I always just love to finish off by giving you the opportunity, if there's anything that we haven't talked about that you wanted to, or just simply leave a little nugget that you want listeners to leave our conversation with. Like if there's one most important thing that you would want them to remember from our conversation.
Nothing that you didn't cover. You did a wonderful job. I feel like I talked about everything I wanted to, but I'll tell you one more thing that gave me great joy as I wrote this book. Here are two kids in 1944 in an occupied country, sick of war, sick of not having freedom, right? And they continue to discuss America, the United States. They're discussing whether or not it could be true that everyone has a chance in this country, that it doesn't matter where you come from, that you can be whoever you want to be. And they argue it. Sometimes one of them says, yeah, I think it's true. And sometimes the other says, that it's not. And that was just a joy for me to remember for myself and for my readers that that's what we've always said we are. It's a place that everybody is free and everybody has a chance.
What a great way to end, Sara. So to me, The Lion's Run is one of those rare books that just manages to illuminate a piece of history that most of us actually had never heard of, while also telling a story that just feels personal and urgent, but also empowering and encouraging. It's about like what it means to be brave, even when the world calls you or makes you feel small. So I think Lucas is going to stay with readers for a long time. And I think that's exactly what great books do. They linger in the best possible way. And on behalf of me and the listeners, we're so grateful that you shared this story with us. And just a huge thank you for spending time with us today.
Oh, thank you, Bianca. Thank you for all of you readers out there. It means the world to me. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us on this quest for growing readers. You can learn more about Sara Pennypacker and The Lion's Run by visiting her website, sarapennypacker.com. We've linked it along with purchase links to the book in our show notes. And if this conversation resonated with you, share it with a teacher, librarian, or fellow book lover who might need it. And if you'd be so inclined as to leave us a review on your favorite listening platform, you'd make our day and help other readers find us too. The Growing Readers podcast is a production of the Children's Book Review. For more empowering and encouraging books like The Lion's Run, I hope you'll visit us at thechildrensbookreview.com